Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode. You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast. Now, let's begin. Kelsey Tran, we're back.
Will Slickers, we're back.
The best co-host I could have ever asked for on Slick Talk. For all my
Too
GMH,
kind. Thank you.
Yeah, my GMH co-host listening. I don't mean it in that way. Okay, I'm not cheating. It's just,
Friday's the best day of the week at the end of the month.
Ooh, coming in
Just
hot.
saying.
Coming in hot. Those are fire shots, Kelsey. Love it. How you been? What's new?
I've been good. The holidays are quickly approaching.
It's really creeping up. I think we recorded right before. I don't remember what my calendar said, but we recorded like right before Thanksgiving, I think.
Mhm.
And now we're recording again right before Christmas. So, buckle up. It's gonna be rough. It's been one hell of a month.
End of the year things.
Yeah. Wrapping up 2023, prepping 2024. I feel like I'm already 6 months into 2024, but this is kind of how it is in our world, right?
Yep. Got to plan ahead.
Got to be on top of it. Well, last month we asked on the episode for the listeners to submit some reviews on your co-hosting and producing work, and we got a couple. FYI.
Did you really?
No, just messing with you. We got a lot of really nice texts. I got some people that were texting on like WhatsApp or email and said, it's nice to see a face from behind the scenes. And I was like, you know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong, because sometimes I feel like I can get a little boring. So, it's nice that you spice it up a little bit. So run us down. What's what we got to unpack in this episode? What do you got for the listeners? What do you got today?
We have 4 episodes that we're highlighting this month from Slick Talk. The first one we're going to be going over is Eric Moeller with Free Wild. Then we have The Great Debate. It's a clip from Heather, who was on the episode, but there were 4 others with you on that episode.
It was me, Heather, Adam, Conrad, and Scott. So 5 of us, yes.
We have Brooke Fotts with Venturi, and then we have Seth Bolt with Bolt Farm Treehouse.
Yes. Great lineup this week, or this month, not this
really
week.
Great.
Gosh, it feels like a week. Great lineup this month. I had a lot of fun with all of them. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on some of them, because you obviously give me great feedback because you edit it and do all the editing and producing. But figured, we're gonna have a fun little deep dive on these clips. So do we want to get started, or how you want to do this? You're running the show today. This is you.
Yeah, we can get started. Last month I gave a theme word and it was intelligence, and this month's theme word is hospitality. A lot of great thought leaders in this group, so I really liked all these clips. Let's go into the first clip with Eric Moeller from Free Wild.
I believe that whatever you do for a living, you can choose to be in hospitality business. You have the privilege of joining people as they celebrate the most joyful moments in their lives, and the chance to offer them a brief moment of consolation and relief in the midst of their most difficult ones. Most importantly, we have the opportunity, a responsibility, to make magic in the world that desperately needs more of it. And so I would love to know, how does that quote and that kind of description earlier in the book, for all the listeners too, he describes service being black and white and hospitality being color. And so I just want to know, what goes through your head when you hear that and when you guys are, imagining the build of the brand that you are now?
Dude, I love that, man. I love that quote. It's so funny, like, when we go out into the world now, we celebrate hospitality and, like, we notice it everywhere. We notice the level of hospitality in any business that we walk into or any interaction that we have, right? And, when we're traveling, I'm like, "Oh, that's good hospitality right there. That's great
Mhm.
right there." Like, and I'm pointing it out. And really, it's human connection at the end of the day, right? And it's removing the ego in the moment and understanding how do we create an incredible experience for this person right here and now, right? And I not only am I doing my best to bring that into interactions that we have with everybody, not just in our business, but every single day type of interaction. It's like, how do I bring my heart forward in this interaction that I'm having and have allowing this person to have a great experience, right? And then once you start doing that, once you start bringing that into your business, man, it is super addicting. For me, I'm obsessed with it.
Okay, so this clip talked all about hospitality and creating an experience when you are having guests or just in general, you might see something lacking and find as an operator that's your opportunity to create that special moment. So I wanted to ask you, what's one hospitality experience you've encountered that you've never forgotten? And then the other way around, what's one hospitality experience that you created that you felt like made a big impact on a guest?
Mm. Dang. See, this is where I'm like, I should prep for these episodes a little bit better because I'm like, oh, Kelsey, you're running the show. And then I have no idea what I'm walking into. So this is nice. Oh, man. One that I've experienced, I'll say it's the little things, I think, and what I think with COVID, it's been really hard. I've been kind of judgmental of, restaurants or hotels or whatever. 'Cause I'm like, oh, it's not the same since before COVID. But there's been a couple people that have worked at a hotel or a restaurant in particular here in Denver who have just like actually like really crush it. And you could tell they love their job, they love their team, they're like they love what they do and they pay attention. And I think like the little attention to detail is like hospitality moments are what get me excited. So I was at a restaurant, group of buddies, we're having just a couple drinks and some food after a long day of bachelor party planning. And basically the waitress was just on top of it, killed it, crushed it, not just like in the normal service, but I think just paying attention and like asked our names and just kind of went beyond like, oh, okay, what do you want to eat today? So I'll remember that one because it's been a while. It's been a while since like, and I know anyone listening, they're gonna be like, oh, really? That's the moment. Like, yeah, it was. It was nice. It felt good. We all were like really excited in the sense of like the fastness behind it, the ability to like joke around, and like it was a great. You could tell something was in the air that day. I think and it was a nice day, and we all walked away like, man, that was a fun evening. Good end of the day. I love the little things like that. And then one that I made that I haven't forgotten. I'll go back to my hotel days, my hotel management days, and maybe even before that. Let's go back to the front desk. I'm
Ooh.
just a front desk agent, brand new to the world of hotels and hospitality. And I think I've talked about this on the pod before, but there was a gentleman probably in his late 70s, early 80s. Like he was up there in age and the nicest guy, had nothing but like nice things to say, super great. And I found out that his daughter was in hospice. And
Mhm.
when he was kind of talking to me about it, and he's like, look, I'm in my 80s. I think he was in his 80s. And she's up there in age too, but it's just like he's like, it's still early. It's my baby. And that broke me. Like I'm the baby of seven. So I have like a bunch of older sisters and a twin brother. And just to hear a dad say that about his kid, even though she's a well, grown adult. And our nightly rate was changing a ton at the hotel, like $100 a night the first night, and then it was like 400 the next day. And I don't know a lot of people's financial stuff, so I don't want to like assume that everyone can just pay it, but he had it booked and he needed to keep extending and extending and extending because of, just the end of her life kept getting extended. And I did against everything in my training. and everything my managers told me, because they even asked me about it, like, this old man keeps coming up to the front desk and asking for Will, and I kept giving him $100 rate, even through this like crazy. It was like $500 a night, Kelsey, at this hotel. Like, it was
Wow.
insanely expensive. I think, what's the basketball turn? It was Hoop Fest in Spokane. So, long story short, not to bore everybody, that was like a special moment. I think like that's when I really experienced like, okay, like there's more to just checking people in and doing that. And he and I like formed a really good connection. Like, I would give him like drink vouchers to go to the bar or to like get something for the Starbucks in the morning, because he was up early. Like, I would get there like sometimes 6 or 5, and he would be ready to go at the coffee shop and going to see his daughter. So that's a moment I hold on to a lot.
I love that. Those stories they feel so good, you know?
Yeah.
I was thinking back, like, what is good hospitality that I've experienced, and my husband and I went to the Philippines for our honeymoon, and I had
Mhm.
never been. I'm half Filipino, so it was a big deal for me to go back to, like, a homeland country,
Yeah.
and the hospitality was insanely amazing. Like, they are so courteous and kind. Like, if you're walking down the hallway, they'll stop and they'll say, "Hello, ma'am, sir," and
Oh
then you
wow.
pass by. And it's just like anything you need, they're right there. And then when we came home from our honeymoon, we had to fly out to Dallas for a trip. And I was just like expecting that because I had been there for 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
in the hallway, I like smiled at the housekeeping. I was like, "Hi." And she was just like, looked at me like very frantically and was just like, okay. Like, she smiled briefly. And then I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay. We're in the US." Not, I don't expect it, but I was just like, "Oh, wow." It was like she was caught very off guard that I like was speaking to her.
Hmm.
And so I was just like, "Oh, that's so interesting." So I commend all the Filipinos with their hospitality experience. And then,
Amen.
yeah, something I created very short. When I worked at SeaWorld, I had a deaf customer come up to me and buy a bubble gun. And I know thank you in sign language. It's very simple. But I said thank you to him in sign language, and he was just over the moon excited and happy. And I was like, wow, that was so simple. But like one small connection just made him so happy.
Yeah, I love that. And you actually, man, I want to like keep rambling, but those I love those moments and those little, like you said, those little things. I had a deaf guest check in at that same hotel, and my supervisor was getting frustrated because he had to read off of the
Mm,
notepad. And I started
mhm,
signing to him because I'm deaf in my left ear. And so I
mhm.
started signing to him, and then like everything shifted. And I still text him to this
Oh,
day. Gunther,
oh.
I gotta give him a shout out. So he's amazing, super nice guy. But yeah, I love that for you, because like I think just like the little stuff, thank you is an easy sign for anyone listening. So like you could do that in your day to day too. Pretty
Yes.
sweet. Yeah. I love that. That makes me man, I'm gonna get all emotional.
This is a good way to start the episode.
Yeah, great
But
way. Great way.
don't worry, we're going into good hospitality talk with all the other ones too. So this next one we have is labeled The Great Debate, and it's STR versus vacation rental. That was a big topic that Scott had posted an article on LinkedIn about. So we'll go ahead and watch the clip.
I think we're missing out on some of the hospitality issues here. I mean, my big area that I think most people are missing is nothing to do with the property itself or the hospitality when you get there. It's what happens between booking and the stay. I mean, I've stayed with the last 3 or 4 occasions I have stayed anywhere. I have had zero communication between booking the place and staying at it. But that's such a massive hospitality opportunity. I went to Barcelona in May to the Scale conference, and I dropped so many breadcrumbs in my email to the property management company. I said, I am a woman traveling on her own. I've not been to Barcelona before, and I'm going to a conference. That is gold. That would be gold to somebody who wants to deliver hospitality. They could have provided me so much which could have been automated by segmentation, and they didn't. There was nothing. So I end up dragging my bag from the Playa de España 15 or 20 minutes down a road to this, finally finding this tiny little alleyway and this property, and being so thankful I wasn't there at night, and then finding my way in and feeling that they could have done so much more for me. I didn't want to be escorted, but I would have liked to have had some information. They also knew I was going to a short-term rental conference. I rest my case on that one.
Missed opportunity.
But I think
Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to say is that if we were trying to distinguish, what we are, but basically we're all doing the same thing. On that occasion, I was a business traveler. On another occasion, on that same trip, I was I went to vacation rentals because I was a vacationer, but I was the same person all the way along, just with different expectations from different places.
Heather spoke in this one. A lot of great conversation, the whole episode from all the other hosts on there, but she was talking about expectations as an operator and behind the scenes from her visit in Barcelona and her leaving all these breadcrumbs, that she's an operator too, going to a short-term rental conference, and they just missed out on this opportunity of hospitality for her. And she was very disappointed. So I was just curious for you, what's it like traveling, being in this industry? Like, do you pick up on all the things? Does it bug you? Because even now when I stay in Airbnb, I'm like, ooh, they should listen to this podcast because this is lacking so hard. Like, what's that like for you?
Oh, it's the worst. And I think Chris Osaka and I talked about this on our episode, and we kind of covered it on the last monthly recap. But traveling, I want to like unplug. But then when I do stay at a hotel or a short-term rental, if I go to a restaurant, because I used to be a restaurant manager as well, part of this group out in Cannon Beach, and I'm sorry, but I pick at everything. I literally watch everything from the cadence of when I get the emails or the messages to their website to their booking. I even pick out the booking engine. I'm like, oh, who are they using? What software? What's the tech stack look like behind the scenes? And pull up so I'll use this in Scottsdale when we were staying at the bachelor party. The pictures that my buddies had sent through the listing looked amazing. We're like, all right, we got this huge house for 7 or 8 dudes, and really exciting to show up. And I was like, yeah, this place looks great. They picked a good property, and they didn't ask for my help. So I was a little nervous because I was like, guys, you sure you want to book this by yourself? Long story short, we pulled up and I immediately was like, what the hell is this? And kind of was in awe that this was the property we were staying at, because outside it looked like nothing like the photos, nothing like that. So I think I'm kind of cursed. I think for the rest of my life, I won't be able to stay at a property and not look at it in a completely analysis way. That's what sucks about vacations, is that I will go on vacation, but then I'm watching the hospitality and how's the property maintained, and looking at every little detail. So it's you have to turn it off. You have to just force yourself. So I'm going to flip the question to you, because you're hearing all of this episodes. You're hearing not only Slick Talk and Good Morning Hospitality, but you have Natalie's No Vacancy podcast. You have Michael Tingsayer's Hospitality Mavericks. You do all this behind the scenes. You hear all this. So how has it impacted you now that you're a listener and consumer / producer of it?
I'm not a pro by any means, but definitely when I'm staying in Airbnbs, I'm looking at the listing. I'm like, do they have the description? Do they have all their photos utilized? Is it high quality? Is it on an iPhone? So I'm looking at all of that. I do feel bad because one time, it was for a bachelorette party, my friend asked me to just look over the Airbnb and see which one I liked best. And so I picked this one, and it ended up being so weird. The owner ended up showing up unannounced, and she's like, oh, I'm just picking up my Amazon packages. And it was just really bizarre. I was texting Natalie from No Vacancy, the podcast, the whole time. And I was like, Nat, this is the weirdest Airbnb. I feel so bad. I was the one telling them we should book this one. But yeah, it's the same exact thing. And for our welcome party for our wedding, we rented out this Airbnb, and beautiful house, but you can tell it was a quick remodel. And Natalie was there too, and she was just we were talking about the design, and I was like, yeah, I don't know why it's not finished painting. They shouldn't have done this. My cousin opened the fridge, and one of the panels fell down, hit her in the eye. It was kind of a mess. But I was now as a guest, I know what to kind of say. I let let the co-host know. I was like, hey, this is what's going on. And I also didn't ask them if I can have 100 people come to the Airbnb for our welcome
Yeah.
party. But I was like, I know I can get away with this because they are slipping on some things. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel it's a blessing and a curse because you know what's good and you know what's bad, but then if it's in the middle, it's kind of like, ooh, you see all the little things. And like, for Robin Cragen or Taylor Hills out there listening, any of our like loyal listeners, I always tune into the show. I hate to say this, but if I stay at a guest like house or one of the houses in their portfolio, like I do the same thing. I'm like, okay, am I getting the same experience I would get as a guest that didn't know the owner? Or and thankfully Taylor and Robin, they kill it, but like, you know especially if they're in the industry, oh yeah, that's my biggest fear, is like staying with someone in the industry and then being like, dude, what the heck, this was horrible. So thankfully I haven't had that experience yet, but yeah, it comes with the territory apparently.
we have to create like little HFM QR codes. And then if we stay at a place and we feel like it needs it, we'll just like slip it there and be like, do with this what you will.
Here you go. You need some advice from a
Yeah.
couple podcasts.
Okay. So this third clip is with Brooke Fotz from Vintry. And he is a all-time champ of the show, 5-time guest.
Like, I think 4 or 5. Yeah.
Okay. We'll work on getting him that jacket with the 5-time guest patch on there. Let's go ahead and listen to this clip.
I don't know if you remember these days, but back in the olden days of short-term rentals, like very few people took online reservations. Like literally you had to answer the phone and you had to book a reservation. And I remember when we first switched to our first software that allowed online reservations, it was LiveRes back in like 2008, I think maybe 2009. And I remember waking up in the morning and I looked on actually, it wasn't even my laptop. I think I drove into the office and I logged into my system, my big old computer stack that I had. I remember we had like 3 online reservations overnight. And it was the greatest feeling ever because I didn't have to speak to anybody. I didn't have to talk to anybody. I didn't have to pay a reservationist. Like just the money just came in. And that was just this like eye-opening experience. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in a new generation. Now, fast forward today, it's like 90% of reservations are online. You don't even speak to anybody, if not more than that. So but my goal for Comparent is the exact same thing, but on a management contract. So Will, imagine waking up in the early morning hours, you go to your laptop, you get your cup of coffee, and you've got three new management contracts signed. You never spoke to anybody. And what we're doing is we've had this shift, I guess, and the internet was a big part of this, but the kind of that sales process in the olden days, like you used to have to talk to somebody and vet out your information. And it's called like information asymmetry. The seller always had all the information. The buyer never had any information. But that's being flipped now, where now the buyer has all this information and they can do their due diligence before they even reach out. So if you look at the sales cycle of any kind of product nowadays, much of that research is being done online before even like reaching out to the salesperson or the company.
Okay, so Brooke was talking about this new generation of technology and not having to talk to anybody when you make a reservation. And he was saying how before you had to go into the office, sign these agreements. It was very face to face. And I had an experience that happened to me a couple weeks ago, and it was very hard for me. And I don't know why, because I never used to be like that. I used to be very confident and just comfortable doing things on my own. But I went into this coffee shop that it's a local coffee shop here, and I had only ordered the same thing like every time I went and through the drive-through, but I was like, I'm gonna go in the coffee shop and order something different. And that was stressing me out. Like I could not stop thinking about it. And I was just like, okay, why was that so hard for me? And I think with COVID and just like being very not face to face, and even our generation too, I think we picked up on the last bit of it where it's just very much texty. We don't like calling into places and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about like this new generation of technology? Obviously, it makes it easy, but
Yeah.
like with hospitality, I know we talk a lot. There's a lot of conversation about the human aspect of like AI and incorporating that, and how do we still be hospitable hosts?
Yeah, there's a fine line, right? And to go into the first clip where we talk with Eric Muller and kind of uncover or unpack the unreasonable hospitality piece, I think the tech stack and the technology aspect, and like, look, I have to disclaimer, I'm an advisor for a couple of AI, like not a couple, an AI company called Bestie AI. He was on Good Morning Hospitality, and so I'm all in for automation of a lot of the simple stuff, right? But there needs to be that balance where I think the human capital where you're spending in labor and guest reservations or messaging can be offloaded into a technology piece and then freeing up that person's time in order for them to find those golden hospitality nuggets. So that's kind of like my perspective. But I think, when Brooke was going into this too, I personally, like, I think I was telling you this, like I was starting to date a little bit, or I am starting to date, and I was went on a date with this girl, and like basically there was a gap between this first date and the second date where we just weren't able to make calendars align. And I don't want to get to know someone over text. Like I don't like that. That's just not how I am. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna call you tonight at 6:30, blah blah blah, and like see how your week's been. I gave her a heads up, did it, great. We talked for 30 minutes or whatever. And then it went immediately back to texting, like asking me all these questions. I was like, I don't want to have these types of conversations over text. Like, it's just not ideal. But
Mhm.
when you have to like make do, like there was another week and a half until we could even go on the second date. So that is an example. Like, I am kind of anti this generation's move of like texting and not seeing people face to face. I'm a verbal processor. I huddle you like 3 times a day, like dumping all my thoughts out and just be like, I have an idea. So I don't know. That's just me. That's how I process things. But I think there's a fine line, right? With the hospitality piece, going back to your question. I think Brooke too, like, I would love to wake up and have 10 signed contracts and agreements. Like, I'm looking at that as hospitality FM, right? Like, how do we streamline shows signing up with us if they need production? How do we streamline brands that want to advertise on our shows? Like, how do we make this an overnight kind of add to cart type experience? Can we even do that? That's like the question too, because it's so unique per person. So, it's kind of the contrarian question of, is there is there a middle ground, basically. That's what I thought. That's my hospitality theology for the day.
Our last clip is with Seth Bolt with Bolt Farm Treehouse. And I mean, I creep on everybody's Instagram when I'm editing. And I was like, okay, he's famous. He's pretty cool. So let's listen to the clip and then we could talk about it.
Do you guys feel like you can train hospitality into team, or do you feel like you have to naturally have that ability?
Yeah, we've definitely made the mistake of being inexperienced in certain, for certain roles and like really hiring for experience. And then ultimately them, not being a culture fit. And so lesson learned there. And now, I'm not really concerned about, how, the background or, education or that kind of thing. It's like, do you have, a genuine like heart and calling for hospitality? Because caring for people is actually not something you learn in a textbook.
Yeah.
I think part of that is it's nature, not nurture. And so now for us, it's cool too to watch a team like, and I'll say the team aspect of hospitality is one of the most amazing things to watch. Like when you really have a team that clicks, because and like we have built such a strong core. We've tried not to grow too fast. We're very careful about who we, invite to be on our team, and we're very upfront about expectations. Because I feel like most of the time when a relationship doesn't work between a business and a person, like either expectations weren't properly set or one side was lying to the other. And
Yeah.
so
100.
will be brutally honest with people and have just totally open and honest conversations and tell them, hey, like this is where we're not doing well right now. I want you to know that before you join us. And this is what we're looking to improve. Can you do this? I want you to know exactly what you're stepping into because we're a startup and this is a new thing that we're pursuing. And we need someone really great to run with the ball. Just so you know, there's not a whole lot of structure here. Sometimes that's the conversation. example of that type of conversation we might have. And I think that goes a long way.
This clip was kind of talking about how he brings people onto his team and he really looks at their heart versus, their education background or experience background. Like, do they have the heart of hospitality? And I really liked what he mentioned. You can't, what did he say? Taking care of people is not in a textbook. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's so true. You learn that through experience, through your upbringing and things like that. And I kind of had a similar situation, or like even when I'm hiring in my past jobs, I kind of look past everything and I'm like, who are they as a person, because that's ultimately who's going to provide the best service and be the best workers, just like, we see in Disneyland or In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A, they have longevity in their employees. And I truly think it's because they're hiring people with heart. So just want to know your thoughts on what Seth said.
No, I love the episode with Seth. I think after we hit stop recording, he and I like got super nerdy and we're just like, we both, I remember him saying, he's like, dude, I could do this for another hour or two with you if I didn't have this other recording I jumped on. I was like, oh no, I feel the same. But like for the listeners who haven't listened to that episode, I 100% recommend going to it. Not because of the episode was so good, but like so let's rewind to like 2014 or 15. I discovered the band Need to Breathe, which is the band that he's in. And I discovered it through my best friend Sam. I was in Bible college at the time. I was probably a month in out of the 3 months I attended before I dropped out. And I remember getting into his car and hearing this song called Oohs and Ahs and I Need to Breathe. And I was like, holy shit, this is the best. Like immediately was just like, damn, this is a great band and loved their music since. So to meet Tori a year ago and have her on the show first, and then to have this come back full circle with Seth, I was kind of like geeking out. I was like, Seth, I don't know what I need to do to get like an autograph, but I'm just gonna have my fanboy moment real quick. But to go back to the question or what you were talking about in the episode, I love his perspective on the hospitality is kind of like there. It's not trained. It can be trained. I think it's not something that like I don't think you can say, oh, if you never experienced it or if you weren't brought up this certain way, you'll never have hospitality or a bone of the hospitality in your body ever. But I look at it the same way. Like let's use you for an example. Let's just use the whole Hospitality FM team. Meeting Claire and interviewing with her, we met online. We met on Upwork, and I didn't care about her business, degree. I didn't care about any of that. It was like, can one, you do a good job, and two, can you communicate and like actually have attention to detail? That's what I wanted to care about. Same thing with Michael. Same thing with you. When Natalie was like, hey, my editor/producer is looking for like more stuff. Do you have anything? And I was like, yep, perfect timing. And then you declined my offer to join and broke my heart for the first time. But like I look like no, but like with even you're a perfect example of like I didn't care about your background in the sense of what you've done or your schooling or anything. It was like, I enjoy talking to you, working with you. Also, can you get behind like the mission and vision of what we're doing? So yeah, I love that approach. I think for me it's worked out. I think we've had a pretty successful run with the three of us or four of us. But yeah, I think that approach is like I don't know. I have not contrary, but maybe not popular opinion on college and degrees and school because I didn't go that route. I don't think you need to go that route to be successful. Obviously, if you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, yes, go to school. But engineer, that too. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely think it's the true heart behind the person is more important.
Yeah, 100%. That was great. That was a great answer. I can see and
feel
feel
weird
your
to
heart.
Does it feel weird to have your boss say that to you though? Like, I don't know. And I hate the word boss. So for anyone listening, I'm sorry that I just used that word. I feel gross.
No, I agree with you because sometimes I'll be like, oh, my boss like said this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, he's like a boss. He's like my boss technically, but like I don't feel that. it just feels like I'm communicating with a friend to get work done.
Dope. Good. That's what I want. I
Yeah.
was like, I feel I'm so sorry that I used the B word. Ugh.
No, that was great.
You know, here to help. You know, this is your show. This is your show now. I'm letting you run. Here's the keys. Title transfer over. You know, get here, all this stuff. Full tank of gas. Here you go. No, this has been fun. I love doing these monthly episodes. Any Christmas plans? I think this episode is going to go out right before Christmas. So for all the listeners, we would love to know what you're doing. But what are you doing? What do you got going with the fam?
All my family is local in San Diego, so I just have to drive from one county to another. But other than that, it's pretty easy. What about you?
Pray that my flight doesn't get delayed or, you know, any kind of craziness, but I'm flying home to Washington. So I'm going to go see the brother, mom, dad, sister, niece. So do the whole thing over there.
I love that. I can't believe you're a part of such a big family. That is so crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, we're all over the place.
My brother's coming home for Christmas, which I'm excited about. He's coming from Washington. And I remember last year he was delayed a few days and he was like, dang, this sucks. But we were so happy. We were like, stay as long as you want to.
Yeah. Crash on my couch, do whatever you need.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, happy holidays to you and the fam. Hope you enjoy some time off post, you know, this episode going live. And for all of our listeners, thanks for, you know, putting up with Kelsey and I just kind of rambling. I love it. This is one of my favorite episodes every month.
I know. Thank you, listeners. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and this time leave a review of Will and let me know how he's doing. You can email me at kelsey@hospitality.fm. Let me know personally. And I don't have to share it with Will, so.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.